so I sink it.
Lovely.
Very caveman-like. So this is what I was planning on asking about. So is there such thing as a social construct?
I mean, I definitely think so. I mean,
Okay.
there's quite a few social constructs.
Yeah. So how do we make of those? Are they, like, I guess what comes to mind when you think of that term?
I mean, I think generally, like, when most people bring that up, they think of, like, gender. Like,
Okay.
that you hear that a lot, like, gender is a social construct.
Yeah. Is it like a good definition of it? Something that exists, in that, like, people refer to it as, like, is this what they mean? That something exists only because people, like, either consciously or unconsciously agree that it exists?
Yeah. It only exists because of the interactions of people with one another.
Yeah, just within the net of social relationships and not by itself.
Yeah, like, it's not a thing. It's more of a... That is an interesting question. Are you in philosophy?
I got a minor in philosophy.
Okay, very cool.
So,
But yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely like an abstract idea, but like I don't want to say like Schrodinger's cat, but like it only exists when you, well, not even like when you
Observe it?
think about it, but like
okay.
when it happens almost.
It only exists to the degree that the social relationships exert influence on the world, something like that.
Something like that, but probably dumb it down like a couple levels.
Okay, like when the rubber hits the road, you know what I mean? Like, it only exists when it actually starts changing observable things,
I think so.
something like that.
But then also, I guess that's getting into philosophy is like if something will like if it doesn't affect anything, does it exist?
Yeah, that sort of idea.
I guess.
So,
Okay.
do you think social constructs affect things?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's
It's
sort of
definitely
I guess that's sort of a rhetorical question almost. So,
Mm-hmm.
so in that case, I guess they're real in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make them real with, like, let's say a capital R, or are they still sort of like illusory?
That's a good question. I guess I'm leaning more towards like being real with a capital R and just like the fact that like it does like affect like the way that things happen.
Okay.
Like you can't like say like because there is like social contracts like because I mean it's also like the things like we identify as like right and wrong.
Okay.
Like of course it's going more into like philosophy and ethics, but like how like do you define something as right? And it's like well it's I mean I think most people would define like something as right is just based on like the general consensus of people.
Yeah.
Of course like people like they base off religion or like like methodologies, but I think that either the way that you look at like we're all kind of attached to some sort of social contract that like we identify with almost.
Yeah. So there's an inevitability to it.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I mean, it affects you whether you believe in it or not. I mean, we live in a society. I'm sure we do live in a society. Sure,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But
So are they natural? Like, are they like almost part of nature then? Like, in the same way like a tree, a squirrel, and a social construct, like they're sort of part of the ecology of nature?
maybe. I mean, could you give me a few examples of like what you think of like social constructs?
Oh, like my definitional examples, or more of like my take?
Maybe your take.
Oh, interesting. I don't know. This is mainly an interview. I guess if I had to speak on it at all, I would just say it's a very difficult question. Like, well, what's the tension there really is, okay, can something be artificial?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if man, or humanity in general, not just, you know what I mean? If humanity in general was created, it sort of has to do with like how do we understand humanity, both the source of humanity and the purpose of humanity. And that question sort of will sort of feed into the question of what makes something artificial.
Okay.
Because like if we arose through natural forces, as most people that I talk to sort of,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk to religious people too, so
Yeah.
you get different points of view, but if we arose through natural sources, then wouldn't that make everything that we do, like the buildings we create, the social constructions that we sort of that influence us, wouldn't that make those sort of natural too? Because we are natural beings, we're made out of carbon and nitrogen and whatever else, and a lot of water. So would it make anything we do also sort of part of the ecology? Like there's no way for us to supersede what is natural because we are natural. Like how do you parse this apart? What do you make of it? Are social constructions natural?
No, I definitely get that. I mean, well, I also like get the argument like that we are natural, but it's also like I guess you can always make the argument that like we can be more than what our nature is, and like you can look at that like like I don't know, like a squirrel just decides to like go and like find nuts or like whatever, but like with a human it's almost like more complicated. But then I guess that would also just be giving it to the natural. I'm sorry, that is a hard question. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I guess so. Another thing that would help me, like, do you have any examples of like what you would consider a social construct?
I suppose, like the fact that we all are studying. I mean, we are physically looking at stuff and trying to absorb information, but there's also this aspect of studying for an exam in order to get a degree. Like what does a degree mean exactly? It's a piece of paper that's sort of handed to you by an institution. Wait, what's an institution? That's an agreement that everyone has, that this sort of collection of people has a certain amount of power or influence over something. Mm-hmm. And it starts to sort of break down as far as like, okay, what is just something that everyone agrees on and what is like physically observable, you know what I mean? So like a degree is an example, or a marriage license, or a a loan, or money in general in some sense. So
it's like marriage as well.
Well, that's a more complicated issue in some sense. I was more talking about a marriage license.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's different ways of talking about marriage. Is it a physical sort of unity that you have with someone else, or is it I don't know. There's different trains of thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely. Now I think I'm actually changing my mind. I do think that like, yes, like social contracts are natural, because I mean, if you look at like history, like, as you're saying, like, what would you consider like artificial? Like maybe something that just doesn't happen naturally, but everything we do is natural. Like if you look throughout history, people are always like marrying. Like, have you heard? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of. Which it's not. Who studied under Freud? It's the idea of that like we all share the same.
Carl Jung.
Yeah, Carl Jung.
The collective unconscious.
The collective unconscious, yes, and like that we all kind of like have these ideas like in the back of our brains, and that like they kind of all like they come out through all these different like kinds of cultures.
Yeah, the archetypes that inhabit the collective unconscious that we all share.
Yeah, and so it's like something you could say like, oh, like the Joker or the Jester is it's a natural thing that happens because
it's a natural pattern.
Comes throughout like each of all of these separate cultures. So I think social contracts is natural.
Okay. So, and do you think that arises any existential paradox?
I definitely think so, because I mean definitely like there's some social contracts that like I would say like are not like good things.
Yeah.
Like I guess the one that comes to mind is like kind of like racism, like racism is bad. Like who would have guessed?
Okay, sure.
But then it's like I'm not saying that right. Because
are you saying that it makes trying to pin down what is true and false more difficult because it all falls under the realm of social construct? Or maybe it makes it easier because you can point to it being a sort of objective pattern in the world.
Maybe what I'm like trying not to what I'm trying not to like delve into is that like like under identifying like these problems, because these are definitely like real things. I'm trying to maybe we need to like go back a step.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to lead off a cliff or anything. So I guess I would then ask, if I can remember what I was going to ask. So there's these social constructions, and the patterns that they have are in some sense real, or they're consistent. Mm-hmm. Or they're consistent. So, and the existential paradox, I think I was thinking of that in more of a grim sort of sense, in the sense of
like we're slaves to nature, or like we're slaves to our impulses.
Those both are relevant, yes. What I had more in mind was like, okay, if I'm nature, if I'm natural, then are all my choices determined? Like, how does that work?
Like the choice between like free will and determined will.
Yeah, like even sitting in the seat of your own consciousness feels strange if you attribute it to sort of a mechanistic nature, and unless we change our view of nature altogether and make it more of a sort of proverbial spiritual sort of thing.
Okay.
You know. So I guess the question I'm asking is nature mechanistic? And does that lead to any sort of existential crisis if we are natural and everything that all the social conventions are natural too?
I mean, I guess that definitely leads to like the existential crisis of like why try,
Okay.
like why try and like go against like the impulses, like you know.
And I guess, do you think free will is part of nature?
This is bad. I mean, I would like to say so, but then also that's kind of like, I mean, wouldn't you want to believe in like free will? Like, wouldn't you want it to be that like, oh, like, you know, I like the choices I'm making are because of like my decisions and not because of the influences of my environment. But then also I feel like that's something that, you know, came about because of my environment.
Okay.
And so
in that case, is there anything unnatural?
I'm curious. So so you talk with a lot of like religious people, and then so I'm guessing like a lot of them like would also talk about like maybe like the unnaturality of God, and that like I hear like one of like the most common arguments like for like there being a God is that like we live in the natural realm and he lives in the unnatural realm, and so there's no way to like conceptually like think or like make a way because we live in like the confines and he lives out of the confines.
Yeah, there's definitely discourse on that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I'm like. Is that like kind of like what you're saying? Like,
Well, like, am I smuggling religious concepts?
No, more like that. Like, since we are in these like natural confines, can we ever like truly like?
Yeah. Like, I guess the main problem for me is to think like, okay, if everything is subsumed under the category of nature, doesn't that make the category of nature in some sense meaningless? You know, like, if everything is natural, then why do we even have the category? You know what I mean? And then it sort of regresses into, okay, well then, like, is there? I don't know. Do you see what I mean? There's a sort of a difficulty there.
Yeah, well, because like if you have a Venn diagram but everything's only in one circle, then like why have the other circle? Like, because you know we can say like everybody's human, but we know that because there's animals, and that's outside of the circle.
And does that mean like this conversation is just nature talking to nature, or like, you know, when I observe my own consciousness, it's like nature sort of paying attention to itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it almost seems paradoxical.
Yeah, I feel like that's just like a question you can run around for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah. So what do you make of that? The categorical thing where it's like, okay, if everything's under one category, doesn't that make the category meaningless? And then the whole idea of loss of personhood, like, it's just nature thinking about itself, it's just nature talking to nature, like, and that can be the last question. Like, what do you make of those things?
Well, I feel like if there is like, you know, you say like everything is under the natural category, then it's like, then of course I feel like that the opposite reaction would be like, well then there must be something that like isn't in that category. Like it's the argument for like why the universe exists. It's like nothing is something.
Okay.
And that's how we are here, because nothing can't be nothing. It's the absence of something. But
So that's like another paradox that sort of makes, it's like a aporia, like it just kind of makes sense of things through paradox, or
I think so almost. It's like it's that idea of that like like things can only exist through paradox.
Okay.
And like, I mean, have you heard of like the first law of thermodynamics? Like matter cannot be created or destroyed.
Yeah.
But yet here we are interacting with matter that can't be created.
Sure.
And so it's just something like we have to live with that paradox.
You might be giving Christians an argument for the Trinity, I think.
You know, I'm giving Christians a lot of arguments.
Oh, really?
Like, you know what? Like, it's like, I'm not even Christian, but like, what, you know, if you can like philosophize me into it, like, sure, you know, like, give your best shot. Like, I'll eat your Chick-fil-A. I'll hear you out.
That's funny.
But
no, I'm just, you know, it just seemed like a relevant thing to say. But what was the other thing you're like, in terms of the nature talking to nature?
Oh yeah, like I think
Yeah.
At least like the way like we were going like back before is like that's just like a paradox that like because if it's like nature talking to nature, then we're all under the same bubble. Then I guess that's like not like conformity, but like that is just nature. And so like I think yes, like that is just like the natural.
And it
Like,
kind of
who was
relates
it?
to the same problem as before, but yeah.
I'm like trying to remember like who it was, but it says like the only time we escape nature is like when we question like the world we live in.
Okay, so that sort of self-consciousness is artificial in some sense.
Almost, but then also of course like
Let's share the sidewalk!
that like artificialness is only produced by natural means.
Okay.
So then
Yeah. Yeah, so does that make it natural then again?
I mean I guess that's what but like this is something like I don't feel very strongly about. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
These
Well,
are hard questions.
Well, that's my purpose, I suppose, is to incite curiosity. So
My brain.
that's all I have today. I probably have to take off.
No, yeah, no, it's fine. It's nice meeting you, Ethan.